Hello dear viewers, it's Aziza Karaeva and you are watching us on TV channel Tourism and Forecast. And today we have a guest, an American visionary and author of 142 new theories and visions in 176 scholarly books and numerous articles as of June 2022, Dr. Peter Baofu. And it should be noted that Dr. Baofu writes articles to provide a visionary challenge to conventional wisdoms in all fields of knowledge, in social science, in formal science, natural and humanities, with the aim for unified theories of everything together, with numerous visions of future histories in relations to the mind, nature, society and culture. Mr. Baofu, welcome once again to our TV channel and to Tajikistan.
Thank you for inviting me.
Several years ago, our president, Emmanuel Rahman, had an initiative in the UN to declare International Decade for Action Water for Sustainable Development between 2018 till 2028, from 6th till 9th of June this year in Dushanbe was held a conference dedicated to this conference, and it helps us to have guests from about 100 countries and about 2,500 visitors, yes, participants in these conferences, and it gave the big impetus to Tajikistan to attract a lot of tourists to come here because we have a lot of resources. In the framework of the conference, our guests, they visited some tourist points, Baofu, Barzop, Hisor, and Norak, hydroelectric power stations. And what about you? How do you think? What else can we do to attract tourists and develop this field?
I think there are not just the two questions that I just mentioned, but also two issues over here, which are also related, especially about the conference that you just mentioned and the initiative. One issue is about tourism, the other issue is about water, as you just mentioned at the conference. And then you have two questions, so let me combine them together and make it easier. I think that the larger context of the question and issue has to be addressed. The larger issue of development, by the way, that's also another point too. So let's talk about the first question first, and also the first issue first, if you like, about, let's say, water supply. It's also related to tourism too. First, we have to understand it is desirable to have more water supply. Why? Because it is desirable, then the next question is, what should we do to pursue that? It is not that desirable, then the next question is, what should we do to reduce that, to stop that? But in order to understand the first question, then you have to understand what are the roots of that demand for water supply. This is not just a problem in Central Asia and Tajikistan. That is a major problem in many other countries around the world that I have visited. You go to Africa, the problem is even worse. So water supply over here, what are the roots of the problem? Well, there are many common problems. Number one is increased population. You have more population now than you had, let's say, 20 years ago. The second problem is about urbanization. Now more and more people move to the city instead of living in the villages. So that put a burden on the economy and nature to fit in all these people, and we have to house them, and then the water supply has to be increased to accommodate them. And then you have to question about effective or ineffective use of the water supply that you have. So think about that. Is that necessarily good for you to have increased water supply for this? Then you have to go to the roots of this problem. Do you think that more population is good? There's a question of whether you want to have more population. Not necessarily so, because people disagree on that. Some people say that too much population is not good. Look at China. China has population control. Do you know that in the last few decades? Recently they abandoned that, but I'm talking about, there's a good example. Some other countries have population control. So you look into the longer term, why are they so concerned about overpopulation or increased population? Is that necessarily a good thing? Secondly, urbanization. Is urbanization necessarily a good thing? On the environment. You put a burden on the environment. Land, by the way, have to be used now to expand the city, to house more people. So you might ask the question, is that sustainable? Now, the question of sustainability not become the issue. So if you answer the question and say, yes, it is sustainable, that's a good thing, and the next question is, what should you do to increase water supply, to do all of this? But on the other hand, if you say, no, it's not necessarily good, then you question the very assumption of the question, is that maybe increased water supply is not the long-term solution to the problem of sustainability. So it depends which way we go. I can go either way. Let's go to the first way first. Let's talk about yes, assuming that it is, what can be done. I think that a lot of things can be done over here, international and domestic. Domestic, by the way, we also have to understand the problem too. Here in Tajikistan and also in Central Asia, the use of water supply is not very efficient. It's not very effective. Let me give you one example. I walked around the street a few days ago, and I saw some trucks. They use the trucks to clean the street, okay, and to water the trees. Now, they stop at the corner of the street, and there is a hose, there's a pipe. So they have a key or something to open it, and the water will come out, and they upload the water into the truck. When it's full, they shut off the pipe, and then they continue. But the problem is that when I pay attention, that it's not very efficient because it's leaking. The pipe is leaking. Every day, 24 hours a day, and the water is coming out like this. Now, that is a waste of water. When you are talking about a country which suffers from water shortage, and you waste water like this, but the leaking is not just for 1 minute. We're talking about 24 hours a day. The water comes to leak from the pipe. You see, that there's only one location. I'm sure that if you see this in the city center, the capital of the country, I'm sure that you will see more in some of the areas too when they are not that developed. That's a good example of this now. And the equipments are very old. Yes. And when they are old, that means that the repair and the maintenance is going to be more costly. So you need to invest more into the infrastructure. Now the next question is, where's the money? And so you invest, you cannot just say, yes, we want more. How are you going to pay for it? That is a question here. So now we go into the question about economics. Well, there are some solutions to that. I can talk about the solution. Internationally, Tajikistan, Central Asia have been receiving a lot of foreign aid. The United Nations, the EU, China, and all these kind of NGOs and all that, they have been funding some of these water supply projects, including the conference that you just mentioned, the United Nations too. So they have some international funding, but they are not sufficient. On the other hand, that is also related to the question of development. I think that's more important to attract foreign investment instead of asking for donation, because foreign donation is never sufficient. They never give you what you want anyway, but foreign investment can be a useful source. And in this case, as I can see now, everywhere you go now, you see a lot of Chinese projects. Because China now is a dominant economy. They are the driving engine of economic growth in the region. So maybe that is one of the solutions to the question, because many of the buildings, roads, projects here, and many of them are from China now. They are funding all of this investment. So I'm sure that some of them can be funded by them, but you have to attract them. I just give you some examples, but there are also some other problems too about water supply in terms of governance, which is also not very effective, and there are corruption too, by the way. And Tajikistan has been ranked among the lowest. You see that? So these are some of the issues which are not necessary for water supply, but is related to water supply in the end.
A big difference in this
Yes, exactly. And then So this is some of the issues that we can address. But I think that they have been making some progress on that. But I also want to warn you not to be over optimistic. Why? Because as long as you pursue the growth of population, you pursue urbanization, this problem is going to be a major burden on water supply. And by the way, I also haven't yet mentioned about the natural causes, which have nothing to do with you, with the government, which are about nature. Each year in Central Asia and also in South Asia too, in Southeast Asia, you have a lot of floods. Sometimes you have droughts. Now that you have a climate change, it disrupts the natural rhythm of nature, and that has a negative impact on water supply too. Look at all these floods. Sometimes it destroys the local villages, they increase the mud flows, for example. And you have a lot of different problems causing the disruption of the local water supply. And droughts is another problem too. And it's not, and you have the monsoon here in Central Asia and also in South Asia and Southeast Asia too. That is also a major problem. But that's natural causes, it's not human causes. But now you have the climate change. Part of that is because of human industrialization, especially by the more advanced countries. They have been polluting the earth. Yeah. And now it affecting the entire planet Earth. Now the climate change is affecting everyone. Yes, exactly. Now you see that all this now they are linked together, even though they are not caused by Tajikistan. But other countries have been causing this. Now it starts affecting Tajikistan too. Everything now become global. They link together. So to address the issue, you have to address all of them. And by the way, I have not yet addressed whether it is not sustainable at all. There's another question we can talk about later, but let's focus about this one first.
I don't know when they put it to the ear.
Yeah, I do have some hope about that. I do think that the government has been doing some works on that, the conferences that you mentioned, the initiatives. I also noticed that Tajikistan has been proposing different initiatives over time. It's not now, even in the past decades or so. But progress has been slow because of all these problems that I just mentioned. Some of them are not caused by you, some of them are external, some of them are internal. So we have to have a more balanced analysis of that. External, there's not much you can do about it because Tajikistan is a small country, it's a poor country. So when external powers, they have done all of this. Look at climate change and pollution and all that. And much of that has been caused by advanced countries in the last 100 years because of industrialization. So it had nothing to do with you, it did not cause that. But even though it started 200 years ago, but the effect after 700 years now, it accumulates to the point now we have a major problem by climate change. Even though that's human cause, not you, not by you, not by your country, but it's external, but now it starts affecting you too. Even in the US now, in some cities now, they have extreme heat or extreme cold. Why? Because of climate change now. It starts affecting, now you have the melting of the ice in the Arctic. All of this have consequences to flooding, to the increased water supply, or it affect other regions geographically. It doesn't have to be either this way, it can go both ways.
So, why did Tajikistan have an initiative to help with the global problem, the water problem, because of the amount of the springs, rivers, and the hydropower plants, yeah, Baofu and Burek. And what do you think in what another global problems can Tajikistan can help to solve them?
This is just the question which I mentioned a while ago, but in a different fashion. There are several things that you can do. Number one, for example, externally, I talk foreign investment, and the second one is about the foreign aid by the United Nations, by the EU, by the US, by China, by many other agencies, the NGOs and all that. They have been coming in already in Tajikistan, and not just that, and also in Central Asia. So those are the two major components, and I should mention more about the first component, which is about the foreign investment. I think that can help you more in the longer term. And I do think, again, that you can just walk around you in the city in Dushanbe over here. You can see that more and more the Chinese projects are coming in. And they will have a more direct impact on the local development in the longer term than any other sources. So when we look into any analysis, we have to look into which one is the major one, which one are the minor ones. And in the case of foreign investment by China, that's going to be a major one, not a minor issue there. So I think that is going to affect in a fundamental way. And the next question is how are you going to attract Chinese investment, and how are you going to negotiate with them such that it can benefit them, but it can also benefit you. But if you are too tough in your negotiation and ask them to do this and this and this, then they have no incentive to come here to invest because they don't give them much of anything. But on the other hand, if you are too loose, then you may not be able to maximize your own advantage, so you have to balance out. I think that's a very important question, not just for water supply, but also for tourism, for manufacturing, for the rest of the economy. So that's another issue that I will talk about later when I finish this one. Domestic issues, factors are also very important. I think that there's also a need for a social campaign in Tajikistan to make them more aware of the waste and inefficient use of water. One good example is the one that I just mentioned to you about the waste of resources like that. In sustainability issue, we often use 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. So those are the 3 R's which I think can be introduced to in Tajikistan. Not that you do not know about it, is that the local people have to be much more involved, much more aware about the 3 R, so that they do not waste the resources, they can reuse the resources in a different way, and they can recycle that. You don't have this kind of culture yet here in Tajikistan. You need to live, let's say, in America or Western Europe for you to be aware some of this mentality which is emerging in the advanced countries. But in a poor country like Tajikistan, people here are not aware of this. That's why you have all these trucks. They waste water like that. No one say anything. It's normal. When you see a pipe that leaking, the water keep coming out like this, and the water is coming down all the way to the street. No one say anything. The passerby, they just pass by. They didn't even look. There's nothing. But if you are aware of this kind of issue of sustainability, that is a very serious issue over here. Many people in Tajikistan, especially in the rural areas, do not even have sufficient water. But how can you afford to waste water like that? I know this, the capital is different. The government has focused a lot of resources to keep the capital nice, because it's the capital. I understand that. But Tajikistan is not just about Dushanbe. You have a lot of other places, and you have to pay attention to the other places too. And also the governance issue is another issue. I will not go too much into that, but I just want to mention that government issue here is not very efficient, it's not very effective.
Some minutes ago you told that we should talk another issue, yes, another question about Tajikistan, so maybe it's the time to talk about it.
Yes, because the conversation so far has been focusing on water supply and tourism. I think the two are related. And we just assume in the question that that's a good thing to have tourism, that's a good thing to have more water supply. And I mentioned to you at the beginning that question, there are 2 questions really. Yes. One question is that whether it's good to have more water supply and more tourism. If it is, what we can do about it. And the second question is that if it's not necessarily good, then maybe we should think twice about pursuing tourism more? That is the second question that I have in mind. We haven't spoken about this yet. Maybe it's time to talk about this. Now the second question in your question is whether tourism and more water supply for consumption is necessary, a good thing. My answer is no. It is good in a certain way, but it's bad in another way. Let's talk about, let's say, water supply first and then tourism again too. As I said, the more water supply that you produce, the more stress it will put on the environment. Especially now under the ideology of capitalism, consume more is good. You have to consume more. The more you consume, the more burden you will have on nature. The earth is not unlimited in terms of natural resources. You only have so much. Even though some of the energy sources are renewable, like solar energy and water, but water is certainly a major problem here. So in the longer term, you need to think in terms of sustainability of the water supply, not just to keep consuming, bringing more water, and it will also create some problems with your neighbors. The problem that you are facing now is that Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan are also competing with the same water supply in the region. This is the same problem in North Africa, about Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia. They are competing for the same water supply, the limited water supply, and many of them are even threatening each other, trying to go to war for that. And because of the dam that Ethiopia has created, and also some other countries, and the water flows from Ethiopia all the way to Sudan and Egypt. So whatever one country does, it has an impact on the other countries. So they have been fighting about this, arguing about this. Now the same problem in Central Asia. Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan are arguing, talking about what should we do about the water supply. So the more you use your water supply, then they will get mad at you because it can affect the supply too. So there are many different problems, and also you need to ask the question how much more human population increase that you want to have in Tajikistan. I mean, how much more population do you want before they reach a point where the burden, the stress on the local resources become a major problem? Then you have the overpopulation problem. And you also have to look at the question about urbanization. It's another driving force to use more and more water. And you have to ask yourself, how big the city do you want to expand further and further and continue like this? Before up to a certain point, then you face the issue of sustainability. And then you face the question about a huge burden on nature, on the environment again. It's that everything that you do in the end is also connected with nature too, because the water comes from nature. So you have to look into nature and see how much they can give you. Not just to keep asking, give me more, I'm going to get more. Yeah, but is that sustainable? That is the larger issue, by the way. This question is also related to tourism.
Okay, I think good. So, okay, thank you, Mr. Baofu, for your colorful conversation with us. Welcome once again here. Okay, so now, dear viewers, our talk show, our conversation is going to end. Thank you for your attention, and see you next